So Mozambicans who cast their votes in the country's national elections want leaders who will bring change in their country in the way of job opportunities as well as peace and stability. The Mozambican National Elections Commission says more than 16 million people registered to vote for a new president that will take over from Filipe Nyusi. The frontrunners are Daniel Chapo, representing the governing Frelimo party, and Ossufo Momade, who is representing the opposition RENAMO. But for more on this, we are joined by Dr Charles Sankala, who is international relations consultant and Africa analyst. Doctor, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you
so much for joining us. I want to start with the question that everybody is thinking about, is whether or not there is a perception or the opinion that this was a free and fair election that took place in Mozambique.
Well, the word free and fair elections is far-fetched, especially in the electoral system, you know, where the incumbent presidential candidate or presidential party manipulates the system because of the advantage that they have. But, you know, with all fairness, at 75–80% elections can be concluded that it can be free and fair. It cannot be completely free and fair.
Yeah, and then for the, I suppose for South Africans, let's understand a little bit about the front runners here. Daniel Chapo, who seemingly, you know, there's the view that this might very well be a landslide for him. What we know about him and what he brings to the table.
Well, he started politics in 2011 when he was elected as governor on one of the states. But, you know, he's also a professional professor in terms of he's a law professor, and as well as been very instrumental. And the party decided that, you know, they try a new age, you know, in the dispensation. And I think he's the only candidate who is 47 years old, and I think who was born after the independence in 1975. Nearly 49 years, if you talk about the people who's been waiting for the hope that the Mozambicans need, you know, I think it will give them a good chance. But of course, you know, there's a lot of youths. As Mozambique has been is a country which has about 75% of youths who are less than 25 years. Of course, those others as well, they've been trying to capitalize on the hope in terms of security, which has been dominated in terms of the insurgencies in the north, Cabo Delgado.
Yeah, you know, I'm keen to hear, you know, I suppose what the electorate in Mozambique certainly views about how the various candidates have put forward their ideas on how to deal with that instability that you're talking about, right? Cabo Delgado having the world watching and seemingly that instability not being resolved.
Well, it's a lot of facets that are involved in terms of those conflicts. You know, all of these conflicts are brought down to poverty. And Mozambique has not been a cent in terms of recruiting those who are impoverished to put them as rebels. We can see that the second largest political party in Mozambique emanated from a rebel group, you know, which capitalized on the poverty of the people, the desperation of people, you know, to give them incentives and fight the insurgencies, and of course fight against the government. And I think those are the things, and as well as you know, religion factors which has been affected, that you know, because of divide within the country. And of course we can't forget the international influence.
Yeah, you know, you talk about international influence, and I almost want to talk a little bit about trade and what Mozambique seems to be doing. I mean, if you speak to some of those that are watching the ports in KZN, for instance, they might be concerned that Mozambique, from an infrastructure point of view, was taking some of our traffic, and that a substantial amount of investment has been done there where infrastructure is concerned. The party that's right to continue that positive trajectory.
Of course, I wouldn't say, Naledi, that Mozambique was taking the South African ports from there. I think South Africa had difficulties in terms of the Transnet, and I think there was an opportunity for other ports, especially Mozambique, and as well as the other ports in Dar es Salaam, you know. But I see now Transnet is getting online, and I think there will be a share in terms of trade. It's a competitive world because of the coastline.
You know, if we talk a little bit about Frelimo, I know that the relationship between Frelimo and the African National Congress, for instance, here in South Africa, quite a significant one. And even in the run-up to this election, you did see the ANC coming out in support of Frelimo. Talk to us about how far that relationship goes. For those perhaps that don't even know some of the political links, I immediately think of, you know, Miriam Makeba, various songs that have been sung in support of Frelimo.
You see, historically, liberation movement worked again,
Yes.
among each other. And I think they worked towards the liberation of South Africa, most of them, because South Africa came a little bit later in terms of attaining high independence. Apart from the Frelimo, there's always, as well, there was UNIP, which shut down in 1991 in Zambia, my country. But talking about the relationship between the ANC and the Frelimo is a deep. I think I saw those two leaders. Chapo was here, you know, to canvass for the votes from those Mozambicans who are living abroad, and I think they needed the support. But you see, liberation movements have got only one job: to liberate the country. And from that, there's a bigger task in terms of managing the affairs of the country. And as they struggle to, you know, to stay in power for another time, you know, I think the tables might change. But looking at the machinery and the last elections of 73% to the incumbent president, you know, Frelimo has had very hard time in terms of penetrating that market.
Yeah, what's interesting is I think that in the run-up to this election, we were also able to see Mozambicans living in South Africa able to vote for their leadership back home. And I think that speaks about the links between the two countries. But what is it that needs to improve where that is concerned, particularly with the Mozambicans that are living in South Africa, coming to the country, looking for economic opportunity? One could assume that the front runner already, as we see, is Daniel Chapo, and that likely is going to be the winner of this election. But what are the things that he needs to tackle to ensure that Mozambicans that come to South Africa out of desperation and economic opportunity are able to settle back home?
Naledi is always about hope, you know, hope that the Mozambican people voted for the independence in 1975. I hope that that child who was born in 1975, he or she is 49 years old. I hope that the last elections, you know, gave the people that they shall be benefiting from within the aspects of their birth country. I think it is that hope that drives the people to even to go vote. We can see the turnout as they still have hope in terms of a better life. But politics in Africa and the rest of the world, you need to be closer to the circle of government. We can see that the only people who's been benefiting within the Mozambican circles are those who are closer to the government. That's why you can see that there has been a lot of rampant corruptions within the ruling government. The finance minister was not short of being arrested in the United States of America, involved in two others. But also these can be speculations, you know, in terms of the geopolitics of trying to dethrone a legitimate, a government which has been voted by the people with all sorts of media tensions and other aspirations. But there's quite a lot of hope, you know. Hope will be shut down once the elections are announced, and I think there will be a renewal for the government, the new government, to tackle security, to tackle poverty, to tackle education, and just an opportunity for that person who wants hope to go back home to Mozambique.
Yeah, I'm also keen to see what happens in some of our neighboring countries. In Mozambique, for instance, what happens that weakens opposition parties. I mean, I think about RENAMO, for instance, and you've got independent Mondlane, a breakaway from RENAMO. What happens there that the stability of an opposition party simply isn't able to hold?
Yeah, it becomes a problem, you know, if you compare the politics we have in Africa and the politics which are probably the UK and the United States of America, where they are limited, squared by two political parties. You know, for us, we have even political parties, up to 50 political parties in Africa. I saw the elections which I saw in Zimbabwe, you know, and the DRC and many other parts of the African continent. So if only opposition political parties, they can have a sense of having one agenda and one goal, you know, I think they are able to tackle the injustices of this liberation movement, to hold them more accountable, to have a more inclusive government like what South Africa is enjoying now, you know, to invite all the parties, all the right people who claims to have good ideas to sort out the home affairs problems and everything, and give them an opportunity, and let's see how they perform. And apart from that, the disunity has always been a challenge in terms of the political parties in Mozambique to work together. Everyone wants to have a closer share, you know, in terms of being closer to the government and counting those those Marutis.
Yeah, very interesting, right? To watch what happens in our neighboring countries. Daniel Chapo of Frelimo, seemingly a front runner there. And one wonders what the lessons are for South Africa as well, as we watch liberation movements continuing to hold power. But to perhaps share your thoughts as well at Newsroom 405. And thank you so much to Dr. Charles Sankala, Africa analyst, for speaking to us here in studio. All right, we take